Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're really happy to have you with us tonight. This is the culmination of a lot of moving pieces, both on the Retro Report end, along with some friends joining us from the United Nations, who are going to share with us not only some of their expertise, but also talk about some of their resources as well. As I had said before, please, if you're wherever you're joining us from, we'd love to know who you are, where you're joining us from, and what it is that you teach. So, as we get started this evening, one of the things I'll point out to you here is that you're able to access this entire presentation both now and I will be sending it along either later this evening or tomorrow morning to everybody. So you'll have all of the resources in the presentation along with all of the links that we're going to share throughout the evening. So yes, I'm David Olson. I am here on behalf of Retro Report, where I serve as the Director of Education. My job is to create resources that go with a whole bunch of our amazing Retro Report films, along with doing outreach with teachers across the country and in some cases like this around the world, especially when we have such an important global topic. Another person that you're going to hear from tonight is Mr. Tomo Okada, who is works at the United Nations in the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. I'll be turning it over in a little bit here to Tomo, and he's going to provide some background and information about some of these global water issues as we go through. Our goals for this evening is that we're going to engage with some of these resources. Again, our goal is to show you a bunch of wonderful free resources that you can turn around and use with your students in a variety of different ways, whether you're teaching science courses, social studies courses, English ELA courses, sort of across the board, all of which sort of examining global water issues. And then we're going to dive a little deeper, looking at some strategies and resources to look at some of these human influences on water resources, our own individual, but also collective responsibility when it comes to water issues. And then also describe ways that humans around the world are making water both fit and unfit for different types of use. And I know Tomo will touch a little bit on that as well and connect it to some of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as we go through. And then this is really where I live and feel a connection is making this connection between science and policy. Full disclosure here, at heart, I am a social studies teacher with a background teaching a whole bunch of different courses, but largely civics and government courses. And I know I would have all of these students who I would try to convince to take my AP US Government and Politics class, and they were like, no, I'm really a science person. I want to go into environmental science. And my reply was always, well, then you better figure out how the government works, because there's a whole lot of connection and crossover between the two. And I think, with some of the resources we'll share this evening, those are some of the things we're trying to highlight, are where our human actions, policy, and effects on the environment all sort of intertwined together. So those are our goals for this evening in the next 53 minutes that we're going to be together. For those of you who might be new to Retro Report, I'll give you just a quick overview. Retro Report is a nonprofit, nonpartisan journalism organization. At our heart, we are a group of filmmakers and journalists who strive to tell stories in the form of short form documentaries. And so we're going to share some clips of two different films, one that's been in our library for a little while but is amazing, and one that is forthcoming. We have an exciting piece of news about who we're going to be releasing it with, but tonight you get a very special sneak preview, not only of the film, but some of the resources that go with it. We make our living trying to connect past and present. Again, as a classroom teacher, this was always one of my goals, was to help students see how history was very, very relevant to the world in which they lived. If you are interested, after learning a little bit tonight about Retro Report, about diving in a bit deeper, we have over 275 films in our library, all of which are entirely free and freely available to you. And then a growing collection, it's a glowing collection too, but a growing collection of lesson plans and student activities, again, all of which are entirely free that you can use with your classes. And then one of the places we'll spend some time this evening is looking at our environmental education collection. Again, this is a place where you're going to see issues of environmental science, geography, public policy, sort of all of those things come together with some of the stories that we tell and the resources that we've created. So at this point, I am going to stop sharing because I'm going to turn it over in just a second here to Tomo Okada. So Tomo, he joined the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs in October of 2020. He is working broadly on water and water-related disaster issues across the globe. He contributed to implementing the Water Action Decade, and last month he organized the UN 2023 Water Conference, which I know the UN team very, very proud of. It was one of their first big public events since pre-pandemic. He's also responsible for substantive and logistic support to the biennial UN special thematic sessions on water and disasters at UN headquarters. Before joining the United Nations, Tomo was a senior government official responsible for policymaking on water and disaster management issues in Japan, and also with the World Meteorological Organization in Geneva. So he has a wealth of experience and some amazing pieces in his background to draw upon here. He holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Tokyo, and also a master's degree in environmental management from Duke. So educated on both sides of the Pacific here. So Tomo, I'd love to turn it over to you. And again, feel free to share your screen. I know you have a presentation to share with us.
Okay. Thank you, David, for your kind introduction. It is my great pleasure to join this event. And let me share my screen.
You are good. We can see it, Tomo.
Okay. So, today, my presentation will focus on global water issues, and I'm a little bit nervous whenever I talk to teachers. So, let me begin with the sustainable development. The concept started widely recognized in 1987 in the report titled Our Common Future. So the sustainable development has a long history. And you may have seen these graphics, but these 17 sustainable development goals agreed in 2015 at the UN General Assembly. And this is another illustration of 17 sustainable development goals created by Stockholm Resilience Center. This illustration shows how economy, society, and biosphere are closely related. And SDG 6 is at the bottom of this cake. And you see it's one of four elements with climate change, ocean, and land. So let me explain SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. SDG 6 has 8 indicators, targets, 8 targets. 6.1 is safe drinking water for all. It says by 2030, achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. And 6.2 is sanitation, 6.3, better water quality, 4, efficient water use, 5, integrated water resources management, and 6, ecosystem, and 6.8 is international cooperation, 6.B is local participation. So these 8 targets are explained by 11 indicators. For example, for drinking water, proportion of population using safely managed drinking water services. This is an indicator. And this is the global status of SDG 6 indicators. UN Water, which is a coordination mechanism of UN entities and international organizations, manages SDG 6 data portal on the website. For example, for drinking water, globally, 74% of the population uses a safely managed drinking water service. And in US, this number is 97%. And for sanitation, globally, 54% the population uses a safely managed sanitation, and in the US, 98%. So this data portal can introduce global data as well as national data in any countries where data is available. So drinking water, in 2020, 2 billion people, around a quarter of the world's population, lacked safely managed drinking water services. And the right side graph shows drinking water indicator progress from 2015 to 2020 and leading to 2030. So globally, the current rate of progress needs to be quadrupled to achieve the target by 2030. So for sanitation, 3.6 billion people, about a half of world population, lacked safely managed sanitation services, and about 500 people still practiced open defecation. Globally, the rate of the progress needs to be quadrupled as well. So hygiene, 2.3 billion people, 30% of the world's population lacked a basic hand washing facility with soap and water at home. And the COVID-19 pandemic showed the necessity of hygiene facilities. Like drinking water, also for sanitation and hygiene, quadruple progress are necessary to achieve these goals, these targets. About wastewater, less than 50% of domestic wastewater is safely treated. And environmental water quality, lack of water quality data means over 3 billion people are at risk because the health of their rivers, lakes, and groundwater is unknown. About water use efficiency. Since 2015, water use efficiency has increased 4% globally. Here, efficiency is measured as the ratio of dollar value added to the volume of water used, considering water use by all economic activities. So currently, globally, the value is about 23 US dollar per cubic meter. And about water stress, this indicator tracks how much fresh water is being withdrawn by all economic activities compared to the total renewable freshwater resources available. So when a territory withdraws 25% or more of its renewable freshwater resources, it is said to be water stressed. And currently, 2.3 billion people live in water-stressed countries, of which over 700 million people live in high and critically water-stressed countries. Integrated water resources management. 107 countries are not on track to have sustainably managed water resources by 2030. And globally, the ratio of the progress needs to be doubled. About transboundary cooperation, out of about 100 countries where data is available, only 24 countries reported transboundary water bodies are covered by operational arrangements for cooperation. About ecosystems, 1/5 of the world's river basins are experiencing rapid changes in the area covered by surface waters due to drought, the impact of climate change, or on the contrary, flood or sometimes melting glaciers. International cooperation, official development assistance commitments to the water sector increased 11%, but disbursements only rose by 3%. About local participation, only 14 countries out of 109 report having high levels of participation by communities in decision-making. In addition to SDG 6, SDG 11.5 is also water-related. 11.5 says, by 2030, significantly reduce the number of deaths and the number of people affected, and substantially decrease the direct economic losses caused by disasters, including water-related disasters. So this slide shows the number of total disaster events by type. for the past 20 years, starting from 1980, and also for 20 years from year 2000. As you can see, the number of events, disaster events, are increasing in most types, and also water-related disasters such as flood, storm, and drought. Almost 3/4 of the total water disaster event, total disaster events. We observe World Water Day on 22 March every year, World Toilet Day on 11 November, and we have many events, and we publish, UN Water publishes annual World Water Development Report on the World Water Day. And Water Action Decade is being implemented until 2028. And last month, the UN organized 2023 Water Conference. The objective of the conference is midterm review of the Water Action Decade. And 20 heads of state and government and 120 ministers participated in the conference. The outcome is the Water Action Agenda, which is a set of over 700 voluntary commitments announced by the governments, international organizations, and stakeholders. And the conference aimed to be inclusive and cross-sectoral and action-oriented. The United Nations is also implementing SDG 6 Global Acceleration Framework, which is based on 5 accelerators: data, information, financing, governance, innovation, capacity development, and these support the developing countries' SDG 6 achievement. The Water Conference last month agreed on the necessary actions to achieve SDG 6. Recognize that water and sanitation are human rights. Treat water and the global water cycle as a global common good. Respect the rights of vulnerable groups. Need better political leadership, government systems, and innovative financing. Strengthen integrated water resources management. Pricing water closer to its true value. And all sectoral investment strategies must become water smart. Protect and restore the healthy life of ecosystems. Develop a global water information system. Strengthen basin organizations. Need legal and institutional arrangements about shared resources. Data and evidence are key to good decision making. So from now, we are going to follow up these key messages, key agreement, and also follow up the voluntary commitments submitted by many stakeholders. So this is the last of my presentation, and I included reference materials on my slides, and you can refer to the data and information, and they are all available on our UN website. So I'm happy to share this slide, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Tomo. Yes, and I will be sharing the slide deck with everyone. And as Tomo pointed out, in the slide notes, there's links to data and studies and a whole bunch of useful material. Tomo, I also hope you're willing to stick around here. I know we have some teachers who'd love to ask you questions as we get towards the end. I also, as we're going to explore some other resources that look at both crises and some of the solutions that folks are around the globe are innovating and using. I would love to come back to you and hear about some of your experiences working on specific projects or places around the globe where you think people are doing some innovative things when it comes to improving water quality, access, sanitation, those sorts of things. So I really appreciate you speaking with us tonight. I hope you'll stick around as we continue.
Sure, thank you.
Excellent. All right. So folks, we're gonna dive in now to a couple of the resources, films, and lesson plans and student activities that we have to share with you. This one, again, I'm excited to give you a very early sneak peek, behind the scenes look at what we do at Retro Report. So we have a brand new film. It's titled "Fighting Drought with an Ancient Practice, Harvesting the Rain." And so this one, we're going to see a short clip, about 4 minutes of in total, it'll be about an 11-minute film, but looks at some low tech and very old ancient practices and how they're being applied to modern problems in different locations around the globe. The reason we don't have the finished product for you yet is because we have an exciting partner with this. We will be releasing this on April 20th, just in advance of Earth Day, with Scientific American as a distribution partner. You'll be able to find this film and the resources that go with it on the Retro Report website. We will not be shy about it. We will make sure we share it with you. But that's the reason we don't have the finished one to share with you. And don't tell my boss, who's also on this call, if you really need to use this film between now and April 20th, send me an email and I'll give you a very secret link that you cannot share with anyone. So we're going to take a look at a snippet of the film. We're going to take a look at one of the resources that goes with it. We have another lesson plan and activity in the works along with it. And then, as we finish up here, we'll see if Tomo or some of the other UN folks who are with us tonight, have any connections or experience with some of these projects. So we'll take a look here at Fighting Drought with an Ancient Practice, Harvesting the Rain.
For decades, the Southwest has been crippled by a growing crisis. The worst drought seen in over 1,000 years. But in Tucson, one man has been trying to change that narrative. One house, one neighborhood at a time.
Grew up here in Tucson and saw the water situation get worse over time. As the groundwater table dropped, saw a lot of springs drying up. I wanted to figure out solutions, and I just took off and started tracking people down and experimenting.
Now you are in the center of water wisdom.
And that's when I learned about Singh and the amazing work being done to reclaim 5 dying rivers.
In the 1980s, Dr. Rajendra Singh had traveled to one of India's poorest farming areas to provide medical care, but quickly learned that drought and decades of overpumping had created a more pressing crisis.
One old man say, no need your medicine, we don't need education, we need water. So he teach me, he show me the way of conservation of water.
Returning to an ancient practice once seen as obsolete, Singh began to dig out a large pit, known as a joad, that could capture the monsoon rains and recharge the aquifers for the dry season.
The British Empire destroyed that culture, that way of water conservation. But the Johar is a very simple way. And Johar is a really connected with the culture of India.
With little help, Singh worked to create his first Joad, but when the monsoon filled it, others took notice and wanted to learn.
So when the people see I created a Johar, a lot of people come back and ask what type of the support we can do. And after this self-motivation, the people join. More than 1,300 villages today, I can say they have the water. The core issue of the challenges of this modern world is water. Without focus of this world can't survive.
Singh ultimately helped reshape the destiny of large swaths of India, but his teachings also spread far beyond India's borders.
This inspiration not only for community or not only for me, this inspiration for all.
Historical practices like these had also been revived in places like Zimbabwe by visionary farmers like Zephaniah Piri Maseko, who became a mentor to Brad Lancaster.
It was so different from what I'd been exposed to in college and whatnot, which was typically higher tech, higher cost strategies that weren't really accessible to the individual, the family, or the neighborhood. I mean, I was blown away by just the incredible positive effect that this work had. But I also realized, wow, I can do this. Anyone can do this that has the ability to move a shovel. The first thing I did wasn't really reducing water use. It was instead making water go further. What are some examples of that? We raised all our pathways to become catchment surfaces to drain to the adjoining planted areas. We directed the water from household drains to a basin with a tree. I started collecting the water off my roof and I directed it into a tank, which I then sent to my kitchen sink.
All right. That's the tease. There's more to it than that, but that's what you get this evening. So one of the other things I love about this film, which I hope you'll watch in its entirety when we release the full thing, is they also are able to follow a number of school children in Arizona who are engaging in some of these water conservation projects themselves. I don't need to tell you that students are always engaged by and interested in seeing what other young people are doing. And I think that's a really powerful part of the remainder of this film. The part you aren't going to see tonight is, some of those ways that young people are involved in this as well. So with this one, the first lesson plan and activity that we have related to this is actually more of a sort of global citizen-minded lesson of taking this idea of, what does it mean to be a good citizen writ large? What sort of responsibilities and actions and traits does a good citizen have? The other thing I want to let you know, if you're new to Retro Report, haven't seen some of our work before and some of our resources, we create generally both what are called lesson plans and student activities. The lesson plan is the teacher-facing document, and so here this will tell you an overview of the lesson, the grade level, how long it might take, what sort of materials might you need, and then how might you actually walk through this lesson with students. We do also tie these generally to some standards, but because we are an organization that serves people all across the country and like some of you this evening in other countries, we don't tie them to state-specific standards. So please, make sure if you're using this as part of a place where you have to demonstrate what's local standards you're meeting, you're going to know those far better than I will. So here, this lesson looks at sort of the difference between what we would call a personally responsible citizen, a participatory citizen, and a justice-oriented citizen. what are some of the traits and actions we would see from those different types of folks. The activity is the student-facing document. So here, this is what you would go and make a copy of and then use directly with your students. The other thing, again, if you're new to Retro Report, I want to let you know is we create all of these in Google Docs so that, as I said, you can make a copy and then make whatever changes you need to make it work in your classroom. Believe me, I have spent way too many hours as a classroom teacher finding really good but not quite perfect materials, only to discover they were in a format that was uneditable. So then I would spend hours recreating a lesson and making it work for my classroom. So our goal here is for you to be able to make a copy of this and then make whatever changes you need to make. And so here, having students go through some of this discussion and reflection about what sort of skills and knowledge dispositions do we need in order to be effective citizens? How can we pull some of those examples here out of the film from Brad Lancaster in Tucson, Arizona, or Dr. Rajendra Singh in India? Can we find examples of those different type of citizen actions and skills, attitudes, attributes of those folks as well? And then the sort of culminating activity here, ask students to create a one-pager activity. We do have a number of different templates that we've created for if you have used one-pagers before. They're wonderful. You can do all sorts of different things with them to help students sort of coalesce and synthesize some of their knowledge from an activity. So that's the one that goes with this. We also will have a more science-focused lesson that will go specifically with this film as well. The other resource I wanted to share with you here, this is a film that we created as part of a 10-part series looking at innovative ways people were dealing with all sorts of challenges around the globe, as well as sort of new frontiers of things like work and money and college. And this one, The Future of Water, is one of my favorites here. So here the activity we've created with it looks at how do humans obtain water for their own use, and then how do they make water unfit or at times fit for use. And the activity that I'll show you here actually has students go through and test some different water filtering techniques to make some not only hypotheses but some measurements and go through this sort of testing process. I'll show you the lesson for this and the lesson page for this in a moment, but here we'll get a sneak peek of this film as well.
New water restrictions have been imposed in Cape Town, South Africa.
In India, rising temperatures threaten to make a severe water crisis there even worse.
The greatest global risks of our time, the shortage of water.
By 2050, the United Nations says more than 5 billion people could be facing water shortages across the globe.
Normal is gone because populations around the world have grown so large. Normal is gone because humans are now changing the climate, and we're in a completely new set of conditions and environments and extreme events.
You can look at water problems and easily work yourself into a panic.
We're talking about 95% of the population is actually living today in a country that has less water than it did 20 years ago.
Take the nation of Namibia in the southwest corner of Africa. It's named for the Namib Desert, which is one of the oldest deserts on Earth. So this may seem like a weird place to come looking for the future of water.
There are no running rivers within Namibia. They're only on our borders, so we're always in a state of uncertainty with our water supply. So this is probably the worst place to have a major city built on.
And yet Namibia's capital, Windhoek, isn't dying of thirst. Windhoek found a radical source of water that's abundant and available to a city of any size, no matter how dry. Here, you'll find a facility with a unique mission,
There was just simply not enough water from the sources around Windhoek. They looked at what do we have? We have a lot of wastewater.
Water reclamation. We basically drink our wastewater, our shitty water, sorry to say, but yeah.
While many cities usually just clean up sewage and then dump it into a river, Windhoek takes that treated water and sends it into their water recycling plant. There's a system of tanks and pipes where any leftover solid matter gets filtered out, microorganisms are killed off, and even antibiotics and hormones get broken down. The last step involves an ultrafiltration membrane,
which will filter out basically all suspended particles, all bacteria and all viruses.
Then it's mixed with other treated water that's collected from an underground aquifer or reservoirs for seasonal rain. Which means that every time someone in Windhoek opens a tap, about a quarter of what comes out is recycled wastewater.
All right, there's your sneak preview of that one as well. Also, I can just envision the faces of middle and high school students as they're showing some of the water filtration in action there. I can hear the audible groans of students and what they might have to say about some of that imagery. But again, a wonderful learning opportunity for students here. And so here, this is the lesson page for this one. So you'll find the full film with a description and then links to the lesson plan and student activity, along with the objectives, essential questions, and then other resources here. This is an example because this is a science-connected lesson. We've linked it to the next generation science standards, again, looking for those sort of national big picture standards. And so here, if we take a look at the student activity for this one, it starts with one of my favorites vocabulary prompts, a Freyer model, looking at the definition of potable. So what does that mean? What are some examples, some characteristics of what potable water means, some non-examples? Again, after they watch the film, I'm sure they'll be able to come up with a good example of non-potable water from some of the imagery you saw, but also potable water by the time you get to the end of it. So here, ask students to reflect on some of their own water usage, to do some internet searches to figure out, how much water is used in some of these daily activities that we do. And then it goes through some questions related to the film directly. And then the day 2 activity here has students go through and actually go through and create some small scale water filtration. And here, if you go to the lesson plan, there's a step-by-step process of how to do that activity with students. So we've got a couple really excellent films that are ready to be used with you, and some wonderful lessons to apply them in your classroom. I also wanted to point out we have an entire environmental science collection with more than a dozen films. The forthcoming Harvesting the Rain film that will also make its way into this collection as well. A number of the films in this collection have full lessons and student activities available with them, and some of the topics you're going to see here, and I'll show it to you. You'll see things looking at invasive species, recycling. Actually, the recycling one, we have the guy who wrote the lesson in attendance with us tonight. We have ones looking at environmental disasters, so things from the Exxon Valdez oil spill to Love Canal to nuclear meltdowns. And I know Caroline just shared in the chat the link here, but I'll give you a peek at the environmental education collection. So here, as you go through, you'll find links to the films and then the lessons and student activities that are available. I think we also have the person who wrote the lesson for colony collapse with us tonight as well. So if it wasn't clear to you, we like to make sure that all of our resources are created by teachers, people who currently are or have been very recently in the classroom, so that we have teachers who are are vouching for, yes, these will work with students. And here are excellent ways to engage your students, not only with a great short video, but with lessons and activities to accompany it. All right. So at this point, I wanted to introduce a couple other folks who are with us this evening, Miguel Ladera and Lily Schindler, who are with the United Nations and part of the education team, part of the outreach division at the United Nations. They very helpfully connected me with Tomo and have some wonderful resources to share with you as well. Lily, Miguel.
Well, thank you so much, David. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here. And thank you so much for inviting our team here. We're also so pleased that we were able to have our colleague Tomo brief you because he is an expert. We're generalists. I'm here with my colleagues Miguel, Pei-Shen, and Michael. We've all joined from, we work in the Department of Global Communications, the Outreach Division. As David explained, we're more sort of generalists, the communications arm of the UN. We undertook a project during the past couple of years. During COVID, especially, we thought it was very important to put together basic resources for teachers from all the materials at the UN. There's so much information that the UN produces, but it can be a bit overwhelming. So we thought that we do work with a lot of teachers. Our office manages the outreach to the general public as well. We manage the guided tours operation. We manage the UN Speakers Bureau. And so we work with a lot of teachers, a lot of students. And we thought, especially we wanted to be able to provide teachers and educators with just basic UN resources so that they could find ways to incorporate UN content in the classroom in a kind of one-stop shop and make it a little bit easier and less intimidating. So this is the page we've created. It's called Teach the UN. The URL is very simple. It's just un.org/teach. It's basically a combination of a few lesson plans that we've put together, that we've created ourselves, just kind of an overview of the UN's work, UN history, and then what we call the 3 pillars: peace and security, development, and as Tomo talked a lot about sustainable development goals, that's very important, and then human rights, that's the 3rd pillar. So that's something we've created ourselves, these lesson plans, to kind of help teachers to, find ways to incorporate these concepts in their teaching. And then the rest of the page is actually just all resources that already exist that we've just basically curated. These are all links. As you can see, this first section here is just basic resources that we think are very helpful, essentially UN website, UN news, and so on. And then going down a little further, we have provided some links again to basic resources on, as I mentioned, the 3 pillars. First, we have a section on an overview, again, more information, just kind of nice background on the history of the UN, just general information. And then from there, we go into some information on peace and security, then on human rights, and then on the sustainable development goals. And what in our experience with the teachers we've worked with, especially on the middle school, high school level, it seems like the SDGs are a great way to kind of incorporate teaching about the UN in the classroom. I think that's something that kids can relate to. And so we've provided these resources, links for you to, hopefully find ways to, incorporate some of that in your curriculum. We also have a section for younger children, young kids. And then we also have a section which really kind of makes learning fun. It's games and activities. These are all on different aspects of the UN's work. They're all games. And of course, we know kids love something interactive. So these are nice ways for them to learn, but have fun learning. And then we have a section on how young people can get involved. Even if they're too young, at this point, they can still have ideas about maybe volunteering or getting involved in their communities. So just different ways we've provided some links to some resources there as well. Model UN is very popular. I don't know if any of you have Model UN programs in your schools, but that's a wonderful tool for kids to learn about diplomacy and learn about other countries, put themselves in the shoes of diplomats. And we provided some resources on Model UN as well. And then our last section is further, reading and other resources. We'd love to hear from you. You can see we have an email address here, Teach the UN. You can see that. We hope you'll also visit our page, and we'll use the materials and share it with other teachers and educators that you know. We also do provide, as I mentioned, guided tours and our briefings through our Speakers Bureau. We realize that not all of you can visit the UN, so we also offer them virtually. So if you have any interest in connecting your classroom with an expert speaker like Tomo, or having an overview of the UN, a virtual tour, we can arrange that for you as well. And we would love to work with you and support you in any way we can. We feel it's so important for young people to understand early on, the importance of being a global citizen. And that's what we're aiming to do here. And we feel that you as teachers and educators, you are the wonderful conduit for this, and we're really grateful for all you do to, educate your students about global issues that are so important. So thank you all so much, and we really hope we can connect with you and stay connected. And I really want to thank David especially for making this connection and bringing us all together like this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lily. Yes, and then one last bit of logistics before I'd love to open it up for questions, whether they're for me, for Lily and Miguel, or for Tomo about some of the global water issues. Like I said, we will be following up with an email that has all of the links to all of the resources that we shared this evening. We also, my colleague Caroline Watkins is going to put in the chat right now a very short survey, a link to a very short survey. This survey is also the place where you can request a certificate of attendance. So if you're in one of those places where reporting professional development hours is a benefit to you, make sure you do the survey. At the end of the survey, there's a question of, would you like me to send you a certificate? And I'm happy to do so. This is also the way that, one of the chief ways we like to get some feedback from teachers when we do webinars like this, to figure out what did we do well, what can we do better, what sort of resources resonated with you, and that you think will find a home in your classroom. So I know that got shared in the chat there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I would love to open it up for questions. If there are questions for me, for the UN team, for Tomo specifically, if you want to raise your hand, you can unmute yourself. If you want to put it in the chat, that's also perfectly fine as well. And this is where I'm going to employ awkward wait time on Zoom.
No, thank you. That was really, really good. We're doing a unit at the moment, starting one when we go back next week on water in the world here in the UAE. And I've had a look, and there are some resources regarding the UAE on the United Nations website, as well as others, just in terms of water use. So just wondering if there's any more around that would be useful for that. So for specific countries, so that there can be a comparison done with students.
Excellent. Tomo, Lily, do you know of any UAE specific resources that you might be able to point Kirsty to?
The database I showed, UN Water SDG 6, you can choose any country. So if you can, I'm not sure UAE's data is there, but if you can choose UAE, there's some data available. So
Are you checking that database now? Is that we can we'll grab the link for that database. Tomo, there's another question in the chat from Kimberly, who is wondering if you can elaborate a little bit more on the lack of WASH impact. and how this is an important issue, global issue that she says doesn't get enough attention. That this issue of public defecation not only leads to health problems and sanitation issues, but also puts women in physical danger in many places, makes them more susceptible to being rape victims and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about WASH, what that is, and then what the UN or other places around the globe are doing to address that?
Yes. So WASH, water and sanitation and hygiene are very basic human rights, and especially women and girls are often requested to fetch water, and they have to spend a lot of time to get such water, and due to such requests, they often cannot go to school or work, and they are not they cannot get enough time to get the income. So and also sanitation and hygiene, their menstrual issues, and also the waterborne disease prevention. We try to improve their situations for them to get better lives and better opportunities to live better career. And one organization, Sanitation for All, is UN-led organization, and they are leading. They are leading network to advocate this issue and improve the situation, and they have very good resources as well.
Excellent. Thank you, and thank all of you for joining us. I know we're at the top of the hour, and I want to be respectful of your time on a Tuesday evening. I'm guessing most of you have to get up and go to school tomorrow. So thank you very much to Tomo Okada for joining us this evening. Thank you to Lily, Miguel, and the rest of the UN team. Like I said, we'll be following up with an email with links to all of these resources. I hope you'll find something that that can be useful in your classroom. Please complete the very short survey for us and give us some feedback. And if you are desiring a PD certificate, that's where you can alert me to that as well. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.